Until last week, I thought my schizophrenia was hereditary. I was having one of those days where I have to stay indoors. I had been stressed at work lately, and as a result, I was having a particularly bad bout of paranoia, and my auditory hallucinations were stronger than usual. I tried tuning him out with music, but Sammy, the voice in my head, wouldn't leave me alone.
You know they're watching you.
He said, "Shut up, Sammy, I'm not listening."
Of course you are. I'm inside your head, remember? Besides, I'm only trying to warn you. They'll be coming to get you soon.
"You've been saying that for years," I said, trying to shut down that mounting paranoia that this time he could be right.
And I've been right for 5 years. I'm 1,000 years old, John. 5 years is soon to me.
My heart rate started to increase. I opened the fridge to get a beer, thinking it would help to calm me down.
You know you're not supposed to drink those.
Sammy said.
They interfere with your medication.
"I know, Sammy," I said. I cracked open the can of Lagunitas and drained half of it in a gulp. I calmed down a little as the pleasant buzz began to cloud my thoughts.
I'll tell Dr. Barksdale.
"That'd be a trick," I said, emboldened by the alcohol. "Go ahead and tell him. As a matter of fact, why don't you go bother somebody else for a while? I'm sick of you."
You're gonna miss me.
"No, I'm not." I waited for Sammy's snappy reply, but it didn't come. Instead, there was only silence. Dr. Barksdale would be upset if he knew that I'd been talking to Sammy again, but it was the most reliable way of getting rid of him without the harsh side effects of increasing my dose of Risperdal. I told myself it wasn't necessary, but I knew I had to do it anyway. I went around my living room and shut the blinds, just in case they were watching. I chided myself for being irrational and flopped down on the couch, ready to kill an afternoon drinking beer and watching some cartoons. I was about 5 minutes into Adventure Time when my phone rang. The caller ID told me it was Dr. Barksdale's office. Not wanting the good doctor to know that I'd been drinking, I let it go to voicemail. But the phone rang again. I sighed and picked it up. "Hello?" I said.
John?
Came Dr. Barksdale's voice. He sounded tense. "Hey, Dr. B," I said. "Is everything okay?"
Have you been hearing the voices, Sammy?
Dr. Barksdale said. "Just a little bit, Doctor. It's nothing I can't handle."
You haven't been talking with them again, have you?
How did he know that? I started feeling paranoid, but Sammy didn't say anything. "Sorry, Doc. I know I'm not supposed to, but it helps,"
No, it's fine.
said Dr. Barksdale.
Do you remember the last thing you said to Sammy? Please concentrate, it's very important.
Why did he want to know that? He said that he was going to tell you that I'd been...
Drinking?
Yeah. He must have heard it in my voice. Was I slurring? "So," I said, "I told him to go bother someone else for a while instead." The line went silent. "Doc?"
I don't know what's going on.
said Dr. Barksdale. His voice was thin and strained.
Logically, I know it must be some sort of shared psychosis, but...
"But what?"
Sammy spoke to me.
My stomach dropped. He had to be joking, right? "He did?" I said.
Yes, I don't understand what's happening, but he told me that I should tell you that...
My hands began to sweat. "What, Doc?"
Never mind. I must not be feeling well.
"Oh, okay, Doc," I said. I wasn't convinced. I held the phone out with my finger above the hang-up button when I heard Sammy's voice on the other end.
I told him to tell you that they're coming for you. Right now.
The line clicked dead, and my doorbell rang. It started out relatively benign. I was awakened one day to the sound of quick footsteps outside my door. I would have normally thought nothing of it and gone back to sleep, but on this particular night, I was gripped with fear. It sounded like someone was running on the landing on the other side of my door. When I opened my bedroom door, my heart started to race. My 10-year-old brother was running laps around the landing, arms stiff by his side, eyes wide open, curly hair bouncing all over his face. I stood in silence for a full minute, unsure of how to react. My immediate thought was that he was sleepwalking, but this looked different. His eyes were wide open and I could quite easily see the palpable fear behind them. I remembered hearing that you shouldn't suddenly wake a sleepwalker or they could go into shock, but this just felt different. "Jared?" I whispered. No response. He continued to briskly walk, arms and legs stiff as logs. "Jared!" And just like that, he seemed to snap out of it. But rather than acknowledge me at all, he did a short beeline and continued back to his bedroom at the same brisk pace. I warily watched him crawl into bed and roll over. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen and saw Jared quietly jumping down a bowl of Cheerios. "What was you doing last night?" I asked. Jared looked up from his breakfast. His face looked high-strung and tired. He looked like he'd aged a decade overnight. "What are you talking about?" Jared asked. I thought I'd seen the last of it, but my brother's nightly excursions continued. Every few nights when the house was asleep, I'd be ripped from the depths of my sleep by the sound of hurried footsteps. And every time I opened the door to face them, I would see Jared doing laps around the stair landing, eyes agape with discernible terror. And every time I was able to usher him back to bed by simply calling his name out. I thought I'd seen the worst of it until a few weekends ago. Midterm exams meant lots of caffeine, and lots of caffeine meant I would certainly be getting up to piss in the middle of the night. I opened the bathroom door, rubbing my eyes. I turned on the light and began to rip down my PJs when something in the bathtub caught my eye. Eyes bloodshot and wide open, Jared stood in the corner of the tub, staring straight into the mirror across of him. I felt my insides clench with fear and my heart nearly ripped out of my throat. Jared's arms were so stiff that his knuckles were white against his side. He looked oddly still. There was no discernible breath leaving his lungs. "Jared, what are you doing?" There's something in the mirror," Jared said, and goosebumps erupted across my body. His eyes did not leave the mirror once. His eyes were now filled to the brim with tears. I felt my own eyes water as I looked at the spot in the mirror where Jared was staring. What I saw was Jared staring back at me, smiling with the look of a man who was sick with joy. His huge smile and wide eyes looked oddly alien in the dim light of the washroom. I felt a prickly, hot feeling spread across the back of my neck and momentarily got lightheaded. I whirled back around and heard a thump behind me as Jared fainted in the tub and slammed his head. It's been a few weeks since that night. The doctors told us that Jared was fine medically. He spent days in a sleep nap, running every test they could think of, and nothing. They did not discover a single anomaly in any of those tests. Except, Jared doesn't talk anymore. He hasn't said a word in weeks, or made eye contact. The team of psychiatrists that have been seeing him think that he got so spooked that night that it sent him into shock. To me, he looks devoid of any emotion at all. Not sad or afraid or anything. He just looks empty. I have stopped drinking coffee before bed, and if I really do need to go, I leave a plastic water bottle or two on the nightstand beside me.